unfortunately, Mio Diaz from Capital One emailed me this morning that she is very sick and lost her voice. So she's regretfully cannot attend today. We have rescheduled her for April 24th, which I think is our final lunch and learn of the semester. She's very apologetic, but Ryan and I are going to step in. I haven't told Ryan this, but I decided I'm going to make this a competition.
Okay.
I'm going to see if this tool called Send Steps. It's an AI tool that uses OER to create slide presentation, or you can upload a slide presentation and create a quiz, an interactive quiz from that slide presentation. So we're going to create a slide presentation, and I think we can suggest a new topic, but I think it'd be fun to do the topic that you are planning on doing and seeing how this competes with your presentation. Everybody on board with this
Sure.
I like it.
fun
Yeah.
competition? All right, so
But this is open source or this is closed source?
this is a tool. I actually don't think it's not open source except that it's very much lives off of OER. So all of the images that it's gonna display are OER images. And yeah, I'll talk about the like pay model and stuff. So yeah, this is just something that one of the keynotes at the Trails conference a couple months ago demoed this, and she was the provost at University of Tennessee.
I was there, but I thought this looked good.
Yeah, so she did a live one, and I think they talked about octopus, how to eat octopus or something. Somebody in the audience like shouted out the topic, and then there was this fun slide deck that was created on the fly. So we're gonna do the same thing. And I wanted to compete with Ryan, see if this AI tool will do a better slide presentation that he's gonna do right after. And I've used this before, and I think it's fun and fast, and so yeah, it's cool. I use one of the lowest paid tier, but there's a free version of this as well. So there's sort of three different things. Start from blank, import a PowerPoint. I actually tried to import a PowerPoint through this button and it didn't work. But I've done everything I want to do through this generate with AI tab, and it's really cool. And we're just going to walk through it. And so what do you want to create today? You can create a quiz based on your own uploaded PowerPoint, or you can create a presentation and then you can add a quiz to it. And that's what I'm going to do today. So what is your talk title? And we'll just put that in here as the prompt. Sorry.
So I'll give you the same title that I'm using. That way we can see for the comparison. So my title slide is LLMs in your science.
Oops. LLMs
In your science?
Yeah.
In your science, okay.
All right, do you have any more description?
That's
we
pretty
can
vague.
give? Yeah, I want to give it a fair shot here. I see what you're doing.
So
Is there a subtitle? I don't know.
there is not, but I'm trying to think.
You
of
had
how
one
to
in the schedule. You had more of a description in the schedule. It's like how to use LLMs to improve your research or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's using LLMs to advance your research. And I guess I'll have to give it a little more of like,
Is it-
in the presentation, so it has a fair competition thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna talk about it, AI thinking framework.
Okay.
So how to integrate AI into your research process and thinking kind of the whole way through.
Into your research process.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, anything else?
It's just not octopuses. This is gonna be complicated.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a continuum of the maturity of your use of AI. So,
Wait, say that again.
like, are you at the beginning of using AI in your research, or are you fully like capable and advancing your research?
He's gonna
It's a
present
maturity model,
a spectrum of
yeah,
maturity. Not, maybe, yeah, maybe,
maturity of AI use. Like, how advanced are you in using AI? Like, are you typing with two fingers, or are you cruising like JP?
Give me the thing to say. What is your
That's
presentation about?
evaluating and selecting technologies, or LLM technologies specifically. Ethical guardrails,
Mhm.
risk, security, openness, considerations.
Okay, we're gonna go, that's good
Okay,
enough. We don't want to confuse.
This is like a modern John Henry thing here, right? This is like.
Yeah.
Man first machine,
Exactly.
pound those hammers.
Number of slides, how many slides do we want? Let's keep it short, we'll do 5. 6, we'll do 6. Amount of text on slide, medium, include speaker's notes, no. Though it does really nice speaker's notes, sometimes it has
I'm kind of
examples.
curious to see what does it think we should say?
Okay, we'll do speaker notes, why not? Interactive questions with, yes, we're gonna do a quiz. Right, for everyone, business, college students, who do you want here? College students, okay, it's our target audience. Tone of voice. What do we want?
What is academic? What does that even mean?
We'll find out.
Use weird words that nobody else
All right,
understands.
now it's creating a title for us. Which title do we want to pick? Do any of these seem appropriate?
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
I like that, that's good, yeah.
Okay, good job so far. And I'll just show real quick the pricing, oops, the pricing models as it's thinking. It's pretty fast. So yeah, here's the free version, and you can do 2 presentations a month. You can only have like 10 interactive users. So when we get to the questions, you're gonna want to pull out your phone. It's gonna have a QR code, and it'll be fun if we all do that and then try to answer the question. And then yeah, starter, professional, and then we can see if we love it, and then we can talk GW into getting an enterprise version. I'm not promoting it. I'm not meaning to. I'm not on the payroll in any way. All right, so it created this whole deck for us. And this is just like the titles of the pages, and you can go through at this point and kind of see if you know, reorder things or see what you think. But I'm just gonna,
Who's winning?
Let's see who's
right, so there's gonna be a quiz at the end. So
Oh,
anyway, this is the outline, and then I'm just gonna say, yeah, outline looks good, let's go for it. Because I don't want to take too much time. Yeah, so this is probably gonna take the most time. Yeah, so the tier that I have is this 5 presentations per month. You can export 5 of them to PowerPoint. You get a bunch of language options. You can have a max of 10 interactive. I think that's 10 quiz questions is basically what it means, but I'm not
Okay.
sure. And then a max interactive audience size of 250. And so I did that because I used this for George Hacks to do a really quick overview of the UN SDGs. Because I ran out of time to do a good presentation, and it was okay presentation. But the quiz was really fun, and the students like really got engaged, and George Hacks had a great audience there, so there were over.
so you had it, write it, and then you gave it as the presentation?
Yeah.
So you showed.
No, I didn't show this part. I didn't show
I just say that, that's nervy. Like-
No, I
Okay, I'm gonna
kind
make
of-
the presentation.
Okay.
Now I'll give the presentation.
Still go.
Oh, without even the.
That's what the keynote did at Trails, and that was, yeah, she was very gutsy and just did it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing now with a little bit lower stakes. All right, so
Got some
we've
stuff.
got our presentation. That wasn't too long.
I
right?
imagine the images is probably the hardest or slowest part, because it's just having to come up with something to stick in there. That usually takes a while.
Oops.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's see what we got.
That's all good.
So everybody read along. I'm not gonna really present this. I'm just gonna kind of go to the one page to the next.
Okay.
And read along and, I don't know how to do the. I don't know how to show
The speaker
the
notes.
speaker notes. We can back out afterwards if you want.
Already
Check
hate
that
it.
out.
It's already doing overview slides are my most hated thing on the talk. Like, I have never seen a talk where I felt like they're needed. I stand by that. Like, I've never seen a situation where an overview slide is a good idea. Don't do
Okay,
it. Don't do it.
okay. You have full.
Very passionate about that.
Right, you have
That's what
full
happened.
flexibility
Hate it
to
already.
remove, change, anything.
Sure,
that
obviously.
it gives you, but,
I would cut this one.
okay.
I've never seen the slide deck with bullets ever.
No, never really worked.
What? That's,
Yeah.
that's my life. Everything I do, oh my gosh, you hate bullets, oh
Also hate
boy.
bullets. But anyway,
All right, this looks like
the
all.
law of
overview.
guardrails. Is that what you were talking about? Did you expect that?
All right,
The giant sentient being.
is this anywhere close to what an AI thinking framework is?
No, but
No,
No,
it's not understanding. I mean, this is a pretty,
Yeah.
this is a pretty hard.
I
idea
didn't
to
give it
understand.
much to
Yeah.
work with.
yeah,
It's,
I thought maybe it would pick it up.
it's doing the best it can. Can't read the title of the background.
Yeah, that's not good. Evaluating LLM technologies,
No.
importance of performance,
Mm. Contrast.
yeah. So,
There are certain things.
not shining right now.
Not shining. I think octopuses is simpler. That would work
Yeah.
really well. I mean, these are hard ideas for anyone to talk about. I mean, ethical guardrails, these are really complicated things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I imagine there's limits, right, to where you can go. I also imagine it does much better if you give it like an existing deck or something. It has a lot more
I
content.
gave
to
it
work
an
with.
existing deck, for an open source, like 101, open science 101 workshop that I have, and I just wanted it to do the quiz, and it did a really good job of
Yeah.
creating a quiz from that.
Sure.
It was really,
Yeah.
really fun. And we could do that with yours too, next time or something. All right, these might be real risk considerations.
The image is cut in half. Yeah, it's struggling to like understand, I think, the positioning and.
All right, everybody get out your phones, let's do the test. The test of what, I don't know.
It's gonna be like, what are guardrails? And choose from one of the above.
Be surprised.
Enter your name.
All right, see, it's showing.
When the presenter
showing
asks
us all in
questions,
there. Everybody on?
our names are there. There they go. This is fun. This part's
Okay.
cool. Ryan's in.
Get
Let's
ready.
go. No pressure. Answer correctly. What is the primary benefit of using it in research? That's a really big
It's
question.
gonna,
What?
Oh, they-
All of the above? It's not right. I wonder what it thinks is best. I'm gonna go with this.
I don't know the answer to this.
Your vote.
I have an opinion about it,
Mhm.
for sure.
all the votes are in, We'll see.
All the votes are in?
Oh.
Oh, it is for generating hypotheses. Apparently, data analysis is useless. Um, that is incorrect.
Next question.
Which ethical concern? Oh. Again, all of the above. I'm gonna go with
Is
this one.
efficacy an ethical concern though?
Efficiency
Efficiency, I mean.
is not an ethical concern.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
All right, get
If
your
you're
answers
making
in.
sacrifices to make it more efficient, bias. It did. That one we seem to agree more on. And we're getting. points.
Oh, James is winning.
I don't know how.
Because we
I
only
think,
asked
I think the
two
faster,
questions.
the faster you answer it.
Oh,
you
you
get-
lose less points. Okay.
You get more points for
So,
being
all
quick.
right, I'm trying to think like the LLM.
All right.
What does it think is its biggest problem? Right? It's so weird.
Oh, yeah.
Evaluating technologies? Oh, we haven't all the above this time. Oh, my phone isn't good one. I
Always
can't do
pick
it.
all the above.
Definitely all the above. Losing points because I'm too slow. It's gonna be like scalability, watch. And, yeah.
Yeah,
Alright, that, I felt like that was.
Alright, we crushed that.
That was
one.
kind of a
Go
gimme.
team.
I like the integration of a quiz into the slides are nice, but
Yeah.
this could be done in like a quarto deck too, probably, so I'm sure we can figure this out. Researchers mitigate risks. With that again,
all of us, please pick me.
It's,
Yeah.
whenever there's an all of them.
yeah.
Uh,
All right,
Dang.
oh, I've lost my.
Oh, I
my phone
barely,
now.
that's because your phone was slow. Oh my gosh, is there
The
more?
screen keeps going off and I'm like, nah, jeez, okay.
I hope there's not that many more, I don't know.
Which area is the most?
Did you
the
tell it
most
how many you
ethical?
wanted?
I think I just did a default and I don't remember how many it is. We might just quit out. Okay, this is the last round.
okay. Oh, the collection, oh, the number of, answer.
Yeah, it's,
on
yeah,
the left.
all right, we'll see,
This can't be all the above because it's the most,
it is all the above.
but it can't like. not
Yeah,
way
the
the
most
question is
ethical is all
Well,
of
that,
them.
Okay, bad.
Yeah, maybe we need to change.
Bad.
The winner is,
Okay.
I think the machine broke, I think John Henry won there.
All right, and then it markets and tries to get you to sign up for some stuff. I
Yeah.
apologize for that.
Live demos are great.
Anyway, it's a great.
I mean, the
Really good.
slideshow, yeah, I love the integration with that. Like, that's nice to have the user, like the interaction of the audience. It has nothing to do with AI, I just like that idea. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Gives me ideas of things we could do with Corto. You could easily add that to a Corto feature. like
I was thinking that. I mean,
Maybe
that's
it's a
maybe
simple side
going
thing.
a different direction, but it would be.
That'd be nice to
Pretty
add,
cool.
but.
Everything about this reinforces everything that I think is wrong with slide decks.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact, it's generated a plausible slide deck and it's plausible because it's exactly as bad as.
Yeah, exactly. It's,
Right.
it's, when the training set includes mostly trash,
Yeah.
it's learning how to make a really not great slideshow.
So a bunch of years ago, like I teach intro to digital media, and there's usually one section a year that's like. There'll be one section that's specifically program students, and there'll be another section I teach that's like sort of general students. And so I always think about like, for these guys that aren't actually trained to be artists, how can I teach them useful stuff within digital media?
Yeah.
So for a while, I did a project that was, they had to do a slide deck. Basically, they had to think about like, what is their favorite thing? What is the canon of their favorite thing? And then do 10 slides. And I'm sure examples of what I thought were good slide decks and bad slide decks. And it was probably the most useful thing they got out of my class was just like how to make a slide deck.
Yeah.
They did not like anything.
So it does have, speaker notes. So I don't know if those are, don't want to go through them all, but
I almost feel
maybe
like
it has some more detail that's actually appropriate, or maybe not. I wouldn't be super confident in this instance.
there's probably a game we could play here, on who can make the worst slide deck with AI. And like try to make it make like a really horrible slide deck and see how bad it gets and then vote on it and see who's his worst. Kind of a fun game.
I do like that you can have a whole set of images that are OER. That you don't have to worry about the copyright issues. And I really like the quiz. I think it is fun to engage the audience in that way.
Sorry, I gotta go, guys. I
Yeah.
just found out I've got an operations meeting in 10
Oh.
minutes. So,
Have fun,
sorry.
James. Take
You
care.
you have enough time to make a slide deck for it.
Yeah. All right, and now I'll hand it over to Ryan we'll see if his presentation is any better.
Yeah.
I have the same bullets, it'd be amazing. I'm like, well, that was basically it. Is it all the above? The answer, all the above.
I think what'd be interesting too is if they let you upload like a paper into it.
Yeah, give it a
And
lot. of
give it a
content.
lot of
You
content.
have
Right,
3,000 characters in that prompt box.
Oh, characters,
I think it was characters.
that's pretty small then. Yeah, well,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. So. Guess what I'm doing is,
From you, yeah, probably.
Oh, am I still
Sorry.
sharing? Oh,
No,
yeah.
just plug in, sorry. You can share with the Zoom, but you have to plug in to see it.
Oh, that's right.
Cause this room is so advanced.
3,000 keywords.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be,
I can see a lot of use cases where this could be helpful. I think this was a pushing the boundaries out in this context. Like, that's a pretty hard topic to come up with a simple little slide deck.
Yeah.
And if you actually gave it, like, if you had written a paper on what you're about to say, they could probably extract those schemes.
better, yeah, I agree.
It at least was on topic. It was like, ethical considerations and things like bias might be a problem.
Yeah.
We're trying.
Okay, so here we go. So this is actually a talk I'm giving next Monday at trustworthy AI course that
Oh, cool.
Robert is teaching.
Yeah.
He asked me to talk about LLMs in neuroscience, so that works well. It's something I know a little about. So this will be kind of a run through, not like, I'm not gonna do it exactly like I plan to present it, because then try to move faster, so you have time to get your feedback, or if you want to stop me at any point, that's fine too. So this is the AI thinking framework. It actually comes out of a different article that isn't focused on research, so I had to reframe it a little bit to get it to work with the research topic. But I like the idea of, the article was about that you don't necessarily just want to think about AI literacy in terms of, do you understand what AI is? Do you understand how AI works? But really, how do you integrate it into your thinking and processes? And the article was more thinking in terms of like work processes, but I want to focus on research processes and how we think about research, from how we frame the research, design the research, what technologies we might use to facilitate the research, what data may be involved, and then the context in which all of this is happening, which then brings you back to the reframing. So it's a very cyclical process. How the authors laid it out then was, then you can also think of it within your process. You start with research questions, and you want to also think about ethics at that point in time as well. Then you come up with a goal for your research, and then you determine what are the process steps for achieving that goal, and then you design research and think about what would make it trustworthy research, which is what we'll be talking about. And then where do technology tools and data sources fit in? And then that takes you again back to your context. Was it successful? What were the risks? Or what are the risks involved in actually carrying out your research? And back to your ethics considerations again. So I found this to be helpful in terms of thinking about research, because research can look like many different things. This is the typical scientific method that probably you started learning in elementary school. And that you think about interesting questions, formulate hypotheses, develop testable predictions, gather some data, refine, alter, expand, develop general theories, make more observations, come up with interesting questions. And so as you think about your science, if this is the type of process you're using, then you can start to think about where AI could fit into those different stages of the scientific method. But not all science looks the same. There's also design science research, which so I would say is more of an engineering paradigm around what research can look like, where you have problems and you suggest different types of solutions, then you do development and you evaluate those to see how it changes. You make knowledge contributions and the loop starts over again. And you're creating what they call design science research. And once again, AI could fit into many different parts of these, and specifically, I'm going to be talking just about LLMs. So though I may say AI, for this context, just think LLMs, not going to get into predictive AI and all the different ways AI can fall into science.
These are exactly the kinds of slides that AI is like horrendous at making, like this is something that any of these that you've shown so far, like this, or like flow diagrams, like I've tried many times to be like, I even give it my framework, I'm like, here's the framework I've written down. And you give me a flow diagram, and it's just impossibly hard for it to do, and
And what it does create, you can't change it all.
No,
Which
it's
is just
just a-
infuriating, because
Yeah.
you'll have just like one small part that's wrong, maybe.
yeah,
It's like, you're so close, since that's wrong, I can't use it.
but I can't explain enough detail for it to know, and yeah, anyway, these are. Yeah, they just can't do it, conceptual frameworks and stuff are really hard, I think, anyway, sorry to.
Oh, no worries.
Like, this is what I expect to be on the slides, and that was just like, here's a robot image, you're like, okay, that's not really a framework.
So the third one then is citizen science research. And again, it's just another way of framing your research, but there's plenty of places where you can think about where LLMs might be useful if this is the type of science that you're doing. And I should mention that the Trustworthy AI course is pan-university, so it'll have social scientists, STEM scientists.
Yeah.
As well as probably people from the humanities who don't actually do science, but do other things. So you can then think about a continuum of your use of AI in your research. It can be very, you just are tool assisted. So you have a couple of LLM tools that you might use, such as for idea generation. And these are just sample articles where people have applied LLMs into their science in these ways. Kind of as you move along the continuum, then you can have an AI assistant, where you're using AI to really assist you in doing the science, but you're still doing the majority of the science. It's a little more than a tool, but it's not all the way to the right, where we have fully automated AI science. And these are very experimental. They just started coming out really last year, where people are trying to automate the full process from idea generation to hypothesis, to design, to data collection, to data analysis, to writing up an article at the end. Where it's tended to be most useful seems to have been in material sciences, where they have very defined ways of doing their work. So there's not a lot of variation in the experimental designs, unlike if you think like sociology. Yeah. Where science can look very, very different, qualitative versus quantitative paradigms and so forth. But my guess is we will get there in a lot of other science areas where people are experimenting with trying to automate more and more of the process.
In that first box, the tool assisted, have you seen LLMs generate novel research ideas? Is that something you'd expect or not?
From the article, it took a lot of really good prompting. It is not easy to get it to, but it is capable of doing it, it seems. But again, it took a lot of work. It was not an easy task to get it there.
I wonder how much of that will make the last one better, like if you can figure out this is the set of prompts and settings that you need to get it to start thinking more creatively, then stick that into the automated one. Maybe it starts getting better at doing
Probably.
science, right? Like there's iteration across these things.
And of course, what you really want to ask it is, can it generate research ideas that are going to make me rich and famous? Of course, as a researcher.
Yeah. Can I publish in science on this set?
Yeah.
But this is also, the idea generation is also where students routinely struggle the most too.
Yeah.
It is a hard part of making a good scientist as a faculty member, is how do you get them to ask good questions?
Yeah.
Because if they have a good question, then everything can flow pretty easily. If you have a bad question, nothing's gonna work, even for the human scientist. So they break it out on a 6-level continuum if you want to look at the article referenced at the bottom for this. And this is a proposal from a new article just last week, actually, looking at how the use of AI might be able to help us advance in scientific discovery. This is proposed, this is speculative, this is not based on data. But they think that we'll be able to advance much more rapidly as we start using co-scientists, and then as autonomous scientists get more further along, then they're seeing that we'll have exponential growth. So this was, again, rather speculative, but the whole article is good. And again, you can get it from archives at the link at the bottom. As you think then about where you are in terms of your use of AI in your research, you can think along a continuum as well, or a maturity model. Are you just beginning to approach using AI, thinking about where it might be useful and at the consideration stage? Or have you moved into exploring, are you actually using some tools in your research and exploring to see if they're helpful or not helpful to the things you're trying to accomplish? Or you can then move to operational, where you're actually using those tools in your workflows, versus systematic, where you actually have the AI and AI-enabled tools as an integrated part of your research workflow and pipelines. So you're starting to optimize the use within your research. And then if you're pioneering, then you're really looking at to see how it can push you in new directions. You might be creating open source AI-enabled tools for your field even when you get to the pioneering stage, which is kind of where JP is.
I'm a pioneer
Yeah.
out on the open frontier.
So if that's kind of framing where AI might be useful in your research, the second step of the AI thinking framework then was design. And this is where you get more specific in terms of how can you actually enhance, accelerate, or improve your research workflow by using AI. Some examples of that might be using it for modeling. You could do agent-based modeling. You could have agent-based simulations instead of having participants. Especially if you're doing exploratory or if you're trying to validate instruments, this might be useful in social science research. Or even doing interactive surveys where instead of filling out surveys, people interact with a chatbot and they just talk to it, answering the questions like it's a live person, but it's actually completing a survey in the background. So those are some of the different ways you might be able to start thinking about how it could be into your design. But there are lots and lots of other ways. This is just some lists that I came up with. But there's from the ideation stage where you're brainstorming and starting to think of ideas, to when you're doing literature reviews, to when you're actually writing code or collecting data, through your data preparation. JP's idea of fuzzy joining of data sets. I haven't tried it yet, but I still think it probably works pretty well.
Yeah.
Probably getting really good at it by now.
True, that idea was a long time ago, and man.
Have you done it?
I haven't tried it still, I haven't had a use case where I really need to yet, but.
Yeah. There's quite a bit of writing going on around, yes, I can just close that. So
Yeah.
I keep moving it. Around data annotation, and data classification, of course, which we could do with machine learning as well. And then, of course, all the way at the end, when you're communicating about your science. And we could now add the new one that David just showed us,
Creating your
making slides
presentation.
about your presentation.
Slides and quizzes.
Slides and quizzes, all the way through educating others about your science. So in the design phase, you want to start thinking about the specifics of how you could use AI at different points within your scientific workflow to think about where LLMs may or may not be valuable, where you want to start with experimentation to see if they do actually improve the quality of your science, or if it just distracts and then not use it. Then I have a short activity for them to do to actually think about their workflows and then talk to the person next to them about where they might use it. Then you have to select what technologies you're actually going to use. And this could be using local models such as Olama, if that's part of helpful to your workflow. It could be using the HPC resources available at GW. So if you're going to try to fine tune a model, or if you want to develop a bigger RAG process, you may. You can also, no, we're choking by water or something. At some point, you'll probably want to move to using programmatic controls if you're gonna be using it within research. So that you're not just using web interfaces, but you're using Python or R or something to actually test and use a variety of different models. You'll want to evaluate the outputs. As well as if you're gonna use multiple LLMs, there's a great tool called LLM Selector that will help you figure out, given the task, which might be the best models for that task at this time. And then, of course, there are open source, open weights, commercial and mixed models that you would want to consider. And if you have to do customization, you'll want to think, are you going to be doing RAG? Are you, or you have to fine tune maybe for yours, or do you want to develop agents depending on, again, what your research tasks is? Yeah, and part of this is I'm going to do a 2-day workshop on the top half of that in June for the DT students who will be attending this. So now I don't have to give this as part of their 2-day workshop, as I've gotten the overview from this. But then I'm actually going to go into how do you do the top half of those things, and hands-on.
And what day students?
The what does the D stand for? The
Decision? I thought it
no
was decision.
decision. What, it's a NSF grant that helps pay for doctoral students in EMSE and in computer science.
It's an NRT program, is the
Yeah,
official program at NSF, but it's for training a doctoral program.
Okay.
Designing trustworthy AI system, sorry. Not decision, design.
but it's actually co-design, isn't it? But they don't have a C.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
GW co-design of trustworthy AI systems is at the top. But the acronym is DTASTE, because
because CD taste doesn't.
CDTASTE is just, DTASTE alone is a weird name. I mean, it's hard,
Yeah.
we probably should have used LLM to come up with a better name, but
But it's,
done.
in this context, it's 8 or 10 doctoral students who are taking courses and seminars together about trustworthy AI. And they're gonna pilot the workshop to see if it's helpful to, like, hands-on, how do you install a llama, how do you start to use Python to program with
That's
this?
great.
How do you use LangFuse or create your own, like we discussed a couple weeks ago? When you get to data, then, if you're going to be using data to RAG your models, you want to think about curating that data, what types of biases you might be adding to your model. And of course, then how are you going to store that data that you're adding to the model? Whereas if you're fine tuning, you also have to think about similar issues. Are you going to scrape data? Are you going to use Kaggle? How are you going to structure that data? Because fine tuning requires, or works best at least, doesn't require structured data sets. How do you clean it? And then what are the privacy concerns around that data? And what is the trustworthiness of the data that you're actually supplementing the model with? And then the context and some of the challenges of using LLMs in your research. How are you going to mitigate for hallucinations? The hallucinations don't happen nearly as much as they did 2 years ago. They still do happen, especially when you're at boundary areas where the LLM has less knowledge, which a lot of your science probably is more in those areas. What are your ensuring that you have fairness in how you handle the data, how you prepare it? What is the data privacy, confidentiality? What are any regulatory standards that might apply in your research domain specifically? Or even standards just of your professional associations in regard to data privacy and data handling issues. If you're going to be using it in a long-term type way as part of your science, Hey, how are you thinking about potential adversarial attacks? And what are your robustness measures? So if you're using it for data collection, for example, and you're putting something on and then you're gonna invite people from Enter or Prolific to use it, you are definitely susceptible to attacks to your model in different ways. People can hack these models, so you have to have some type of robustness security structures around it. Are you gonna think about toxic? How are you gonna make sure that participants don't encounter anything that would be a negative experience for the participant if you're working with human subjects? Yeah, and there's just a fair amount of uncertainty that comes out of these models, and how will you communicate that? Both to people participating as well as in any write-ups. If we think a little bit more into these, and they will have had the article, the reading for this week is this guardrails article. So they should be familiar with these. But some of the key considerations when you're establishing guardrails for using LLMs in science. First is, of course, is it legal?
You already have a quiz.
Yeah.
All the above.
All of the above. It's all of the above on all of these, I can tell you that right
I
now.
think copyright.
So privacy, compliance, copyright, making sure whatever you're doing is legal first and foremost. Is it safe? Of course, especially if you're working with humans, you want it safe. But even if you're not, you have to think about safety of your systems, and if it's hooked to a network, you're at risk like any other system. So are you applying good secure by design principles for data security and software security, actually? What is it that makes it ethical? What is societal impacts? Could be, how are you handling fairness? And of course, is it trustworthy, which is essential to our conversations and trustworthy AI? And in the science context, this article breaks out trustworthy into factuality, explainable, and open. So your science, the trustworthiness of your science when using LLMs, you have to think about contextualizing the knowledge. And the knowledge that is coming out of an LLM comes in a different context, and you want to be aware of that. How do you handle consistency? Because you know LLMs, unless you write a very, very detailed prompt, you're always going to get a different answer because of it being stochastic. So you don't have that consistency, but that also then impacts on the trustworthiness of your science. Time sensitivity used to be more of an issue, but now models are getting built so quickly that the age of the data is becoming less relevant, though. If it's in the last 3 months, probably like 4.0 has no information about that. And then you're gonna have it do web search. Then you open up for more security risks.
So if you're, if you're going all in with AI, do you just throw in the towel to reproducibility? Or how do you handle that?
So I think the first thing on the open science part is splitting, do you want replication or reproducibility? You probably have to throw in the towel on replication, because replicating results is next to impossible. Reproducing gives you more flexibility, where then you're mostly just setting up all the same variables trying to reproduce, but you don't necessarily have the same as standard that you do with the replication, is my understanding.
And you'd have to maybe define that standard. It's not gonna be exactly the same, but it'll
Yeah.
be the same.
Close enough that you
some kind
can make generalizations
evaluation.
across the
Yeah.
two.
Criteria.
Yeah, it is difficult because, again, these systems are designed for not being the same answer every time.
Even in the technical way, though, like if you say, I want to do a fuzzy join, but I don't want it to use some Python language, I want to just take these two columns and try to match them based on the names, and it just does it. There's no guarantee that the second time it does it, it's gonna have the same match. And I mean, you could probably just run that experiment and do that a few times and see, does it? Whereas if I'm using a algorithm to do the fuzzy matching, I will always get the exact same match. And so that's a really simplistic example of using it for a intermediate science step that might just be this kind of meaningless step in your long process of work. But then your whole process is not replicable because you don't know.
Mhm.
How did you make that join? You'd be like, Claude did it.
But I guess what you could do in that type of situation is you could improve the results, not get it perfect, but you could improve by having Claude do it 50 times.
Yeah.
And then taking the
Look for
average of the
consistencies,
50. And then say. That is the
Yeah.
way that you did it.
We're gonna Monte Carlo it, yeah,
Yeah, you can,
essentially.
Mhm.
and then you have better science, even though it's not an exact algorithm.
Yeah.
That is repeatable.
That makes me want to build a whole package to do fuzzy joining via LLM, like just fuzzy joining with zero actual algorithms. Just give it to the transformer, let it figure it out. But
We have an opening in 2 weeks if you want to present on coders at this.
I mean, like, yeah, I bet I can have it build the thing to do that for me real quickly, actually, because
Yeah.
that's actually really, it's a totally different idea, but if you build in a Monte Carlo on top of that, right? Where like your package is do the join, but under the hood, it does it 50 times and it evaluates differences and it finds the most common. Now I have a whole nother way to do fuzzy joining. It might actually outperform existing things. Okay, I have a side point. Have a weekend project, guys.
Just like that.
I'll be back after class. I'll let it run in the background, see how it goes.
That's great.
Okay.
So yeah, attribution, how do you identify and again, communicate about uncertainty, verification? And then accountability, how do you as the scientist remain accountable for the science you are doing? Because you are in the end, the scientist. Outside of the article, there are some more recent ones that we should be thinking about too. There you go. So the illusion of knowledge and understanding and being careful if we're using LLMs that we don't fall into this illusion that we understand science. So if you think about this in terms of writing a lit review and you're using LLMs frequently to help you write your lit review, you may think that you understand the research that has been done in the past without really understanding it because you actually have not read the research. So that's not advisable. But you'll have the illusion that you understand it and you'll be like ChatGPT, you'll be very confident in how wrong you are.
You're implying that reading scientific research would help you understand it.
If you're doing it, it should.
That,
I mean, in your area, you should be able to read
Yeah.
what others are doing in your area.
this is no different from coding, though, same problem where
Yeah,
the more you just rely on it to generate code, you become falsely confident that you understand the code. And then you see some novel case and you're like, you're not able to catch the error. You're not able to understand why it's doing it. And it's a problem.
I guess I struggle with, this is aside, but the reading of the research, especially if you're not quite dead center in that, discipline can be very challenging. Whereas if you go in and replicate it or try to reproduce it, then you're really gonna understand it. But you don't have
yeah,
time to do
well, and
all
I
of
think
that.
and this gets to other issues that aren't for this talk, but I was reading a good article yesterday about it's kind of how scientists should stay in their lane and not talk so much about things they don't know about in their professional role, like when you're out and about, do what you want. It was a academic freedom, free speech article. But it was saying one of the problems is, especially in the social sciences, we have a lot of academics who are speaking outside of their discipline. And they think they're experts everywhere because they're an expert. Like you might be an expert in child development psychology, but that does not make you an expert in election law. So you should not write articles about election law if you are an expert in that. But we have a lot of people who are, in
Very
my
vocal
words,
about this.
getting outside of their lanes where they have expertise, and then that weakens people's perception of academic expertise because they're like,
Yeah.
well, these people are just making up all kinds of BS.
Yeah.
And then everyone looks worse because some people are doing that in their professional, like, you can say what you want when you don't have your professional hat on, but if you're teaching on a topic, you should teach that topic. So it was an interesting article. As we've talked about in coders, there's issues with scheming and reward hacking. For use in science, I think probably the more important of these two is going to become this reward hacking. Because as we build agents to do specific things, we're often using reinforcement type learning to train them to do it. The more you train them to do it, the more likely they are to hack a way to get there instead of actually doing what you want them to do to get there. And you can see this in their reasoning models, at least for now, but at some point they'll stop putting it in their reasoning models because they'll realize that you don't want those things and they're trying to please you. So it'll just get harder and more obfuscated as we go forward. So you have to find a good balance of how much reward you give to get the behaviors you want out of a language model.
Was my hypothesis validated, or was the AI just trying to make me happy? By validating my hypothesis.
Yeah, it wants you to feel good.
Yeah.
So,
You're doing a great job, man.
it's also important to remember that when you customize models, you actually are making safety trade-offs often. And so when you get a model, so they take a base model and then these companies do a lot of work to make it a model that's usable, such as OpenAI or Google. And then when you go and fine tune it, often you'll end up compromising the safety guardrails that they have put into the model because your fine tuning will mess up with their weights and stuff. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you have to be aware that you are opening yourself up for more safety issues to gain capabilities typically, is what the latest research is showing. So again, you want to think about how do you use LLMs kind of in the whole life cycle of your science, from framing to design to what technologies, data, and of course then the context and the trustworthy ethical use of LLMs. So that is the talk.
Yay.
Now I have to make some revisions. There are a couple points.
I think the human might have beat the machine.
I think the human crushed the machine.
Machine has some work to do.
Now, the machine was probably faster at doing it.
It was
but-
faster.
And it didn't have to read nearly as much.
We could,
If we gave it,
upload-
I was gonna say now we do the.
We
Yeah,
could
Now
upload
we
that
could
and give a
upload my
question
presentation
Give it
and
that,
say,
yeah.
now
and do a quiz.
Work
Now
with
we can-
this, yeah.
work with this and do a quiz.
Yeah.
I think it would do very well.
If it's able to leverage the images that are already in it, then it would be great, because if it can be like, oh, I'm gonna keep this flow chart or something. If it can't, then it just like throws away the flow charts and that's annoying, because.
Yeah, and
It's-
it's probably, I don't know that it would be able to reduce the flow of the flow chart, like.
Yeah.
Right.
That this
It-
comes next.
It'd be smart if it was built in a way that it would detect images and say, I'm gonna maybe reuse this image that's already here, but it probably can't, not yet.
Yeah, I can send you a PDF if you want to try it.
I'm happy to do
I'm
that. if you
I'm
want.
curious about, this is, my back on this, making a
It
presentation.
has to be a PowerPoint.
Like-
Oh, it has to be a PowerPoint. Yeah.
The act of
Not in
creating a PowerPoint is actually what I often have my students do before they write papers, because it is the distillation of your work into a very condensed format. And so before we write something up, I'm often like, okay, you give a talk at our research group next week, put a deck together, and we get the deck and it's like, it needs work, right? The story's out of whack. The storytelling around the research is not clear yet, and by building the deck, you now write a far better paper because you've really thought through, what is the motivation? How do I set this up to motivate why this research is important or whatever? And like, that is almost always my workflows. The paper always comes much later.
Mhm.
And so like automating that process is like pointless to me. It's like, this is the best part of the work.
Yeah,
This is the start of my initial attempt to communicate my idea to other people. So I really need to outline this. And a slide deck's a great way to do some outlining.
Mhm.
I find it much easier to do that than to outline in a paper. Because you're dealing with text and paragraphs, whereas slides, you can just drag them around and go, yeah, this table should maybe move up here, and you can iterate more quickly and.
Hmm.
So it is a generative task for me as a communicator to think about. How should I communicate my work to others? And so, even if I never present it to anybody, I still do that task a lot of times before I write. So I wouldn't wanna automate that, it just
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
like the wrong. It's a fun tool for maybe some context, like, let's say you're giving a hackathon, right? And you have 15 projects that you have to ran through the slide deck. Great, it'll do it for you.
It did a really bad job. I mean,
Of course, it's not good.
I just didn't have time. The quiz was fun and everybody.
Yeah,
enjoyed it,
yeah.
But the slides, it was bad.
Yeah,
I think it's probably really good for like K-12 teachers. I think
maybe, yeah, there's cases.
because like, they just have so much time they have to fill, especially like sixth grade science teacher.
Yeah, you gotta really.
It's not
cram
like-
it in.
I mean, we have it pretty easy in higher ed, like twice a week. You have to come up with something, or like, I have to fill hours.
In my dream, grades would go away and then this kind of engagement
Yeah.
would replace it. And
Yeah.
you would get the
Yeah.
really relaxed, fun, you know.
I think if I could get rid of grades in my class, my programming course would go 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
And I just can't.
Have you heard about some of the no grade options?